In a grand Harvard lecture hall, Professor Langston, a renowned scholar, stood at the podium. His sharp eyes scanned the room filled with eager students. Among them was Mia, a quiet young woman with a determined gaze. She clutched her notebook tightly, her heart racing. Mia wasn't just any student. She was the daughter of the university's janitor, a fact she kept hidden from her peers. Langston's lecture on socio-economic disparity was intense. He paced the stage, his voice booming with authority. "Success is reserved for those who seize it," he declared, his tone dismissive of struggle. Mia scribbled notes, her jaw clenched. She knew the professor's words didn't account for people like her father, who worked tirelessly in the shadows to support her dreams. As the lecture neared its end, Langston opened the floor for questions. Hands shot up, but he called on his favorites, students from elite backgrounds. Mia hesitated, her hand half raised. She felt invisible, her courage wavering. But something inside her stirred. She thought of her father, mopping these very halls, and her resolve hardened. She raised her hand higher. Langston's eyes landed on Mia, and a smirk crossed his face. "You in the back," he said, his tone laced with condescension. "What could you possibly add?" Snickers rippled through the room. Mia's cheeks burned, but she stood, her voice steady. "I have a question about your dismissal of systemic barriers," she began, her words clear and deliberate. The professor raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "Systemic barriers?" he scoffed. "Those are excuses for the lazy." The room grew quiet, sensing tension. Mia's heart pounded, but she didn't back down. "My father is a janitor here," she said, her voice unwavering. "He works harder than anyone I know, yet he's trapped by the system you claim doesn't exist." Gasps filled the room. Langston's smirk faltered, but he quickly recovered. "A janitor's daughter in my class," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "How quaint. Tell me, what does your father's failure teach us about ambition?" The students shifted uncomfortably, some whispering. Mia's eyes blazed with defiance as she prepared her response. "My father isn't a failure," Mia said, her voice rising. "He's a man who sacrifices everything so I can be here. Ambition isn't just for the privileged. It's for those who fight against odds you've never faced." The room was silent, every eye on her. Langston opened his mouth to retort, but Mia wasn't finished. She took a step forward, her confidence growing. "You speak of success as if it's a straight path," Mia continued. "But for people like my father, it's a maze of closed doors. He's not lazy, he's limited by a system that rewards wealth over work." Her words hung in the air, sharp and undeniable. Students nodded, some clapping softly. Langston's face reddened, his authority challenged in his own domain. The professor tried to regain control. "This isn't a soapbox, young lady," he snapped. "Sit down." But Mia stood her ground. "I'm not done," she said firmly. "You teach theories, but you ignore reality. My father's labor built this university as much as your lectures. Respect isn't owed to you, it's earned." The room erupted in applause, students inspired by her courage. Langston's composure cracked. He pointed at Mia, his voice sharp. "You're out of line," he said, but the students' support drowned him out. Mia's eyes never left his. "No, Professor," she said. "You are. You mock those who make your world possible." Her words were a blade, cutting through his arrogance. The applause grew louder, a wave of admiration for Mia. A student in the front row stood, clapping. "She's right," he shouted. Others joined, their voices uniting. Langston's face twisted in frustration as he realized he'd lost the room. Mia remained standing, her chin high. She wasn't just defending her father, she was speaking for everyone, silenced by privilege. The energy in the hall was electric, charged with her truth. The professor slammed his notes on the podium, his voice rising. "This is my lecture," he bellowed. But the students ignored him. Mia's words had ignited something unstoppable. A young woman near Mia whispered, "You're incredible!" Mia gave a small nod, her focus still on Langston. She knew this moment would define her time at Harvard. Langston tried one last jab. "Your father's place is cleaning floors, not shaping minds," he sneered. The room gasped again, but Mia was unfazed. "And yet," she said, her voice calm, "his daughter is here, challenging you. Maybe it's you who's in the wrong place." The students roared, their cheers echoing off the walls. Langston's face drained of color. Mia's words were a mirror, reflecting Langston's bias back at him. She continued, "You teach us to analyze systems, but you refuse to see the one that keeps people like my father down. That's not scholarship. It's ignorance." The room was hers now, every student hanging on her words. Even those who'd laughed earlier were clapping, moved by her clarity. A senior professor in the back, observing silently, stood and nodded at Mia. His presence lent weight to her words. Langston noticed and faltered, his bluster fading. Mia's courage had shifted the room's power. She wasn't just a student. She was a force, dismantling the professor's worldview with every sentence. The applause continued, relentless. "Enough!" Langston shouted, but his voice was weak. He looked around, desperate for allies, but found none. Mia's truth had exposed him, and the students saw it. She took a deep breath, her final words ready. "Respect the people who build your world," she said, "or you're no better than the systems you defend." The room exploded in cheers. Mia sat down, her heart still racing. Students around her leaned over, offering words of support. "That was amazing," one said. Another handed her a note. "You spoke for all of us." Langston stood frozen at the podium, his lecture notes forgotten. For the first time, he was speechless, his authority stripped by a janitor's daughter. The senior professor approached Mia as the room emptied. "You have a gift," he said, quietly. "Don't let anyone silence you." Mia nodded, gratitude in her eyes. She thought of her father, who'd be waiting in the janitor's closet, unaware of her triumph. She couldn't wait to tell him. To see his proud smile, Langston gathered his things, avoiding eye contact with the students. His mockery had backfired, and he knew it. Mia's words would linger, a challenge to his teaching and his beliefs. As he left, a few students whispered about filing complaints, inspired by Mia's stand. The lecture hall buzzed with her impact. Mia walked out into the crisp Harvard air, her notebook clutched to her chest. She felt lighter, as if she'd shed years of doubt. Her father's sacrifices, her own struggles, it all led to this moment. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was a voice, and she'd made a room of Harvard's elite listen. In the janitor's closet, Mia found her father, mop in hand. "How was class, Mija?" he asked, his tired eyes warm. Mia smiled, tears welling. "I spoke up, Papi," she said, "for you." His face lit up and he pulled her into a hug. "That's my girl," he whispered. Mia knew this was just the beginning. Word of Mia's stand spread across campus. Students shared the story in dining halls, on social media. "The janitor's daughter shut down Langston," they said, admiration in their voices. Mia became a symbol of courage, proof that truth could challenge power. Her peers sought her out, eager to hear her perspective. The next day, Mia walked into her seminar with her head high. Classmates who'd ignored her before now greeted her warmly. Even Langston's teaching assistant gave her a nod of respect. Mia realized her words hadn't just silenced a room, they'd started a conversation. She felt a new sense of purpose. Langston's next lecture was subdued. He avoided Mia's gaze, his usual bravado gone. Students whispered about the incident, some recording his words in case he slipped again. Mia sat in the back, her notebook open, ready to challenge him if needed. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was empowered. The senior professor invited Mia to a research group, recognizing her potential. "You see the world differently," he told her. "We need that." Mia accepted, her confidence growing. She began to dream bigger, not just for herself, but for her father, for everyone the system overlooked. Her voice was her power. Mia's father noticed her change. "You're stronger now," he said one evening, pride in his voice. Mia nodded. "Because of you," she replied. She vowed to honor his sacrifices, to fight for a world where hard work was enough. Her Harvard journey, once daunting, now felt like a platform for change. Campus organizations reached out to Mia, asking her to speak at events. She hesitated. She wasn't used to the spotlight, but accepted. Her story resonated, inspiring others to share their struggles. Mia realized she wasn't alone. Her courage had unlocked a community of voices, all demanding to be heard. Langston's reputation took a hit. Students questioned his biases, and faculty whispered about his conduct. He issued a half-hearted apology, but Mia didn't care. She'd already moved on, focusing on her studies and her mission. The professor's mockery had only made her stronger, more determined. Months later, Mia stood at a university event, sharing her story. The crowd hung on her words, just as her classmates had that day. She spoke of her father, of resilience, of justice. When she finished, the applause was deafening. Mia knew she'd found her calling, not just to succeed, but to uplift others. Back in the lecture hall, Mia sat in her usual seat, notebook open. Langston's voice droned on, but she wasn't listening. She was planning her next move, her next speech, her next fight. The janitor's daughter had silenced a room, but her voice would echo far beyond Harvard's walls, a beacon for those